We need to talk about what the most important thing you can do to get your diet right. The most important thing you have to do before you start any weight loss journey or any journey where you are correcting the course of your life through your nutrition, whether that's weight loss or other health issues you're dealing with. And I was originally going to just do a sort of general thing on mindset, but here's the thing. The mindset topic is enormous. Really like getting into how you should be thinking and seeing the world around you and your role in it and how you're to live is really a huge, huge, huge topic that no, it's rather noteworthy that very few people in the carnivore space or the ketogenic space have really touched. A few have, and it's a good thing that they have, but we really need to talk about these things. And so I'm gonna zero in today on one thing you need to do, maybe two, but really one thing. And that first thing is you have to stop hating yourself. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't hate myself." But then every morning they go in front of the mirror to brush their teeth or shave or get ready to go to work or whatever, and they are quietly loathing themselves. You have to stop with that. It's not going to help you on your weight loss journey. It's not okay to look in the mirror and to hate yourself. It is perfectly fine, though, to hate the state you're in or what condition you're in now in terms of health. And when you see that in the mirror, it's okay to not like that. It's not okay to hate yourself. You are a human being. You have dignity, and you're deserving of some basic human dignity. And hating yourself is a good way to destroy your own dignity. It's a good way to set yourself off down the path to emotional eating. Emotional eating is your enemy. It is where you start eating when you're not hungry. You're snacking unnecessarily, having an emotional response to a lot just to your current state. And this is, being bored and eating is another thing entirely. Just grabbing a meat stick or something out of your cabinet just to eat that because you have nothing else to do so you can keep yourself busy. That's a different problem, something we'll talk about later. But for now, emotional eating is an enemy of yours, and it's a complicated one. But the worst thing you can possibly do if you want to feed that beast, if you want to set yourself up for failure, is to look in the mirror every morning and to hate yourself. You should look at yourself and maybe take what you don't like that you see and use it as a motivation to fix your condition, but not hate yourself. Dignity, remember that you have dignity, can be used as a motivating factor, that you deserve at least some very basic respect. Do we bear some responsibility for if we are overweight? Of course we do. We have some responsibility. But I want to point out to you a basic statistic. It is now estimated that 80% of Americans are overweight, at least, if not obese. And while America is sort of the lost leader in the Western world for that problem right now, most other countries are in the 60% range of overweight or worse. When you start getting into range numbers that are that in that range, to some degree, your own responsibility may be mitigated. And I say may because, of course, there are some people who do it to themselves. But when that problem is as big as that, as big as it is now, there's something else that's a problem. Have you heard like stories of, maybe you have friends over in Europe, or maybe you're a European watching this, and this has happened to you, or maybe the reverse is true. I'll talk about that here too, hopefully. But the story is this: a European, or maybe someone from Japan or somebody, comes to the United States, does not change their diet at all. They eat the same things. They don't do a bunch of food tourism. They're here for business for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, they've put on 10 pounds, eating the exact same things they did overseas. And then they go back home, continue eating the way they did when visiting America, which was the way they did before they went home, or the way they did before they came to America. And guess what happens? They lose the weight. They make no real effort. How does that happen? What's the cause of it? We don't really know precisely what the cause of it is, but it's something in the food. It has to be. It's the only thing that makes sense. There's something in America wrong with our food. Could be the over reliance on processed foods, but Americans aren't the only ones who eat an enormous amount of processed foods. Every Western country has its grocery stores, and they're all basically set up the same way with that middle aisle filled with a bunch of junk that people shouldn't be eating, but sparingly, if even that. So at some point, there's a sort of a systemic problem, and it's with our food. And we're going to throw in the beverages there, of course. Anything you stick into your body for nutrition's purpose or to satiate your hunger, we're going to count as food. There's a problem, something there. And I would bet that when you look at the processed foods, it has to do both with the extensive ingredients lists of those items, as well as the prevalence of powdered foods, which our bodies we're not built to really digest properly. We absorb almost everything in them, which can be a problem when you really look at nutritional absorption for normal foods by comparison. We're not built for that. But it's also, I think, that the prevalence of, well, genetically modified foods. Like if you walk through the produce section, or even, I hate to say it, the meat department, we talk about ancestral appropriate eating here in the carnivore world and in related nutrition spaces. But the real problem is virtually nothing in the grocery store, even in the meat aisle that we like so much, is what our ancestors deep in history ate. The meats that we eat are bred to be fattier than they were, than things we would have hunted, back before the agricultural revolution in human history. The produce section is hilariously unnatural. Do you really think strawberries are that big and juicy? Do you think we can get strawberries in North America in December naturally? No. We don't eat a species appropriate diet. And it's by custom, going back beyond antiquity. These are real problems. And until we address those as real problems, the situation for everyone is not going to get better. Now, yes, you do bear some responsibility. I admit that when I got to nearly 400 pounds, a lot of that was my own fault. So you have to take responsibility. That does not mean that you have to hate yourself. You take responsibility because you respect yourself to a basic degree that you should. And that also means that when you have to respect yourself, that has to become the motivating factor, that you have to take that basic respect for yourself, and by extension, for the people who rely on you around you, and take that every single day. Look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to fall off the wagon today. I'm going to stick to the plan. Whether that plan is, typical carnivore, eat till you're satisfied approach, or if you've discovered like me that you can't do that, that because your hunger and satiation signaling in your body is just broken from a lifetime of yo-yo dieting, that you have to track and restrict. Whatever it is that you do, you have to do out of basic respect for yourself and the people around you. Do not look in the mirror and loathe yourself, because if you do that, you are setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself for overeating, for falling off the wagon and saying, I've been good for 2 weeks, but this is really hard. So I'm going to go have whatever your personal food item is. That also means when it comes time to take some of that personal responsibility about all this, that you avoid those traps early on that will set you up for failure. Don't let people do that to you. Don't do that to yourself. If that means avoiding the bakery section of the grocery store, then avoid the bakery section of the grocery store. Remember what I said about everything? Pretty much everything in the grocery store being pretty much unnatural. Even the foods there that people have been eating for hundreds, if not thousands of years, that are not a species appropriate food, but people seem to do okay on until mysteriously recently when everything became artificial. The modern versions of those foods in that section aren't really good for you either, because they're not anything like what our ancestors would have eaten. If you went back to the year 1700, grabbed a equivalent of a merchant class or middle class person and brought them to a grocery store in America and only took them to the parts of the store with foods they would have recognized, their mind would be blown, and not just because of the abundance, but if you told them what was in it, that it was a bunch of things that alchemists or chemists had been using, guess what? They would have been mortified. The food isn't natural. That's probably the crux of our problem. So have some respect for yourself. Take some responsibility to do what you need to do. Look in the mirror, take what you see as a positive motivation to do what you need to do. But don't hate yourself. Down that path lies destruction and failure. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this, please. Like and subscribe if you can. It really does help. Share this with a friend who you think needs to hear this message. Share it on social media if you can. I'm Anthony Stine. I'm the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for watching today.